Hello and welcome to the Property Lifestyle Mastery podcast. On this show, we're having open conversations about building a property business that creates cash flow and freedom, and the highs, the lows, and the lessons in creating the holiday every 6 weeks lifestyle. From big picture strategy and maximising your potential right down to practical solutions. And today, you are joined by myself and Dave again, and we're talking about how to create abundance. And abundance, we've taken the very detailed approach from previous episodes where we've gone into how to use your spreadsheet to create more cash flow in your business. We're really swinging to the opposite end of the scale here, in order to say, how can you take the path of least resistance to creating more abundance in your business by shifting your decision making and your perspective, and how to use meditation to help you to do this. So without further ado, here's myself and Dave. Right, here we are.
Hello, Jackie.
Hello, Dave. And here we are, realising that we've got to get out of the motorhome and record some podcasts in the wonderful surroundings that we're seeing. So for those of you that can see us, obviously you can see us, but those of you who are listening in, we are currently in France, just north of Bordeaux, basically in a field next to various different little lakes. We've had a wonderful week parked up here, doing some meetings,
chilling out,
sitting by the lake. Yeah, so we were very inspired to come and sit down here this morning, and we want to talk about meditation today. And I think I'm really excited to start moving down these trains of thought, because I think we get into some really transformational stuff that it's great to talk about, really through the lens of property and business. So the topic of today is how meditation can actually help you to grow your cash flow in your property business, and is not actually a waste of time. So we're just going to share the experience that we've been through, and how actually I can directly link starting meditation with probably adding an extra 5-6 grand a month to our monthly cash flow. Yeah. So that's what we're going to be exploring today. Anyone add to that, Mr. Detail Dave?
Yeah, I guess I'd say that, we have our blueprint, our Property Lifestyle Mastery blueprint that we use. We've kind of pulled together as our way of structuring for our clients how we've made this life happen. And one of the main pillars of that blueprint is the mindset mastery. I just did the podcast with Dom on that, actually. And I think within mindset mastery, there's several different tools that you use to enable that mastery of your mindset. But for me, this is it. Meditation is the pinnacle tool. It is the one that literally overpowers all others. If you want to master your mindset in any way, shape or form, it's meditation. That's it, right?
That is it.
That is it.
So before we get into all of this, I was just, we're actually ironically just doing a meditation before this, and one of the things I realised that is important to say going into this is that if you're not already meditating, which probably is most of you, maybe you might be doing some shorter guided meditations, or maybe some mindfulness every now and then, but I think probably some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, you could have quite a strong reaction to. And I implore you to stick with this episode and get through it, and just be aware of what you're saying to yourself about it, and what that voice is saying to you in your head, and how that feels. And don't give up. Just stick with it, even if you're like, I completely disagree with what these guys are saying. And I'll explain why in a moment, that we can totally relate to feeling that way. But you'll probably have some quite visceral reaction, and we can go into why that is. But so I implore you, stick with this, even if you're like, what a load of rubbish. So I guess for me, I really wanted to start this discussion with kind of our initial kind of awareness that we had around meditation, which was through one of our business mentors. Now this must have been 7 years ago, something like that, and he was saying that he meditated, or he was off after a session to go and do a meditation. I'd love to hear, I don't know if you remember this, but
how many years ago was this? 10 years?
No, less than 10 years.
8 years ago.
Maybe 8 years. Yeah. And I can remember my reaction just being like, what a waste of time. What are you doing? Surely you've got more important things to do. I've got more important things to be doing. I've got a to-do list. I can't go and sit and just quietly for half an hour. And I just remember just thinking it was I guess deep down, part of me was intrigued, but like my rational brain was like, I do not have time for that. Do you remember it?
I do vaguely remember it. I guess I didn't have a stronger reaction as you. I wasn't visceral about it. I wasn't like, what the hell?
Maybe I needed it more than you.
But I definitely didn't feel like, oh great, that is something I need. You know, I should get on with doing some of that.
And why did you not think you needed it?
Because we were doing well. We had a good business. We were working hard, and things were working fine. Like we just had a lot to do. And I guess I didn't feel like. Do you know what? I didn't feel like there was any burning problem that needed to be solved, that meditation was going to be my answer to. I felt like we had good, solid grounding in business. You know, we had our mentor who was helping us. We had a good, solid understanding of how to make the business profitable and how to make it work. And we had lots of shit to get on with, you know? And meditation wasn't going to be helping me get on with that stuff. It was just
get in the way.
Another thing that you had to spend time on. Yeah.
So maybe then a good next place to go is just like where did the meditation come from? Because I actually think you were more of the driving force for when this actually started, which was probably 2.5-ish years ago.
3 years now.
No, maybe it was actually, I think it did start with me, but it kind of indirectly. I was going through a really tough time. This was after the first lockdown, and we did this amazing like road trip through Italy in between the two lockdowns, and we ate a shed ton of pizza and drank a shed ton of wine, and that's kind of like, it was great, having a great time, but actually I came back from all of that and I got a parasite in my gut. I know this because we have this amazing chiropractor lady who was able to assess it, and she put me on this protocol to sort out my gut to get rid of this parasite. And it totally changed me, didn't it?
Oh God, you were like a different person. You was like a different person. You went from being energized, kind of, motivated, fun, enjoying things, to literally like randomly crying for no reason, finding things really hard.
Like the idea of going on some meetings, I was just like, I'd have like a meltdown. I'd be like, Dave, I just can't do it.
Yeah, it was so weird.
I just didn't feel like myself anymore. It was like an 8 or 12 week protocol that I had to go through to get rid of this. So it was like quite an extended period of time that I just didn't feel like myself at all. And it was during this time that we also started working with Dom, and he suggested to me a book, which was A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, don't know how you say it. And I listened to it at first, and I would like listen to it in a bath. I'd have like Epsom salt baths, like if you're in a bit of a tough time, sit in and put a ton of Epsom salts in the bath and sit in it, and actually it just really calms your whole like nervous system down. So I'd sit in the bath trying to like remember who I was again and listen to A New Earth. And it was totally life-changing, like the way that he spoke about kind of like who you really think you are. It just really resonated with me because I was really questioning who I was, because I didn't really know who I was anymore at this moment. And it kind of made me start to realise that there was a whole different perspective of life that I wasn't actually really thinking about or aware of. And now that's for me where it all kind of started, and it really opened my mind, because I guess when you're in those worst parts of life, you kind of suddenly you talked about it the other day, like you lose all your willpower, which we think is a really bad thing, but actually it kind of humbles you, and you kind of open yourself up and go, okay, what I'm currently doing is not working, please just send me something else that will work. And so you just kind of like crack yourself open, and that's what it did for me in that moment. And I can remember talking to you about it, and you were kind of like, I don't know if I want to read it. Do you remember? That's when we were in Cape Town by that point.
No, it wasn't reading it, you listened to it, and I think Eckhart is the narrator, and I listened to some bits of him narrating. He speaks so slowly, and I was getting
That's
on
what
with
I needed in my life. I was like, I need this calm.
I don't want to listen to that, no. But you're right, I wasn't immediately on board. You're right.
And so then something happened around the new year. So it was like the January, it was like lockdown in the UK. We were in Cape Town, managed to escape, and we were in a bookshop. And that's for me where that change started to happen for you.
Well, I'd obviously started to shift something by watching you go through this. So it wasn't that I wasn't on board, as it were, but I had also shifted. And all it was, it opened me up to the idea. I think that's all it was.
Okay.
So when I was randomly just browsing a bookshop with Jackie, which is something I like to do occasionally, it just suddenly opened me up different books on the shelves, and I think opened me up to just following a bit more of my intuition rather than my normal standard things I'd go with. And I was suddenly found myself looking at the books that were all to do with, developing yourself or meditation or these kinds of books, and I was kind of looking at them what is interesting here, and I found one that appealed to me, just felt like it just felt good, called Total Meditation by Deepak Chopra. And that one was, I just bought it on a whim, right? And started reading that, and that was the shift for me. That was the moment I started reading that, thinking, this actually makes a lot of sense. I could do with this.
And do you remember what it was? Was there like a main takeaway that you had? What was the thing that made a lot of sense to you? Do you remember?
I'd always thought meditation was something you went and sat on your own and did, and you just had to quiet your mind, think about nothing, and stare at a candle or something, right? Okay. This was my impression of meditation, and I think this is the general impression. This is the thing we all think. You've got to stare at a candle, quieten the mind, not think of anything, and 10 minutes later it will have done something, right? That was kind of where I was at with meditation. And I read this book, and it made me realise just how much of a tiny end of a needle I was seeing of the huge iceberg underneath of what it's all about.
So it wasn't about the candle, it's about what the candle represented.
No. So I suddenly opened my mind. It just started widening my thoughts around what meditation was and how it could help you. And the nice thing about his book, Total Meditation, is he really talks about he makes it very clear, it's not just about the time you spend meditating. That's actually not the point. He talks about how it is actually about bringing meditation into your life. So that's why it's called Total Meditation. He says it's like total meditation at all times. That the meditation you do, when you're sitting down and doing it, is all about how do you then bring that through into every aspect and every moment of your life to make everything better. And I started to see a whole different thing, because I started to say, right, well, what he's saying about how my life could be better just on day to day, I want that. That sounds great. I wanted some of that, so I thought maybe there was more of a point to spending that time, whatever, 10 minutes a day sitting down, 15 minutes a day sitting down, doing some sort of meditational protocol.
Listen, you're making it sound all lordy now on your meditational protocol.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's kind of, and I did always look at it like that in terms of, how could I make the best use of that time? Because obviously I didn't want to just sit down and think about a candle for 10 minutes. So I did start to immediately explore as many different things as I could to make that time really work for me as much as possible.
I think for me that was like, because then you convinced me to read the book as well, and I read it, and for me the main takeaway that I had, he just at the end of the book there's like a 7-day get into meditation protocol. And it was like 7 different things to think about or kind of ponder on as part of your meditation, and like questions to ask yourself, like how could I make my relationships more loving, or what could I do to allow my business to flourish more. Those are not necessarily the questions that they were, but that's the kind of idea. And there's like a different focus to ponder on each of the days. And prior to this, I had, in the couple of years or 3 years before, I'd been going to therapy, and I'd gone to therapy with the objective of starting to let go of some of my perfectionism that I realised was just really making my life a bit miserable at points. And I kind of realised that going through this 7-day meditation, and I would like sit down quietly, no candle, and then I would read what he had, ponder how you could help your business to grow. But the idea was not to like answer the question with your mind. It was kind of somehow to just like let that question sit and see what insights came up from doing that. And I had some amazing insights. And I was like, oh my God, this is what therapy did. But yeah, therapy, you maybe have to sit for like an hour. Maybe what I'd have to do in like a couple of sessions of therapy, I could do in like a 10-15 minute meditation. And I was like, wow, I can be my own therapist. Like, that's very convenient. And so that for me was what kind of started to get me into it and start to realise that I didn't necessarily need a therapist externally to help me to notice and question things within myself, that actually I could start to do it myself.
And I think that is we talk about our property lifestyle mastery triangle. The mindset mastery element of it fits within. There's a simple cycle that goes through: self-awareness, then overcoming limiting beliefs, and then the third element is becoming your ideal self. And I really feel like one of the reasons everyone needs some sort of a mentor, someone to go to guide them in their business, in their life, is to get proper perspective outside third-party perspective, is to get someone who looks in, and ideally someone who is further along than you on the path you're following, so that they can look at you and see where what you're doing isn't what they would do, and they're further along, so they've obviously managed it. It's the reason that everyone, you read autobiographies of someone like Branson or these amazing businessmen, and you just say, I want to read about them, and women, totally right. Business people,
yes,
these incredibly successful people. You want to read their autobiographies to understand what they did. How did they get to where they did? Because you're just trying to dissect what is the difference between you and them. And this is a simple fact. Every single person is different, and every single person is different because they are self-sabotaging themselves in different ways. And it's just some people have worked out how to self-sabotage themselves less, right? You're just like, they've gotten over that internal problem, that thing that is holding them back. I think holding them back is the key. We're all holding ourselves back in different ways. And when you go to a mentor, or you read a book about someone, or you're looking for an external perspective where you can shine a light on yourself and say, what am I doing that is wrong, that is holding me back from what I want to achieve?
And you just can't see it within yourself.
No.
Like, you're totally blind to it. And I guess this is one of the things I was kind of alluding to with, like, stick with this podcast if you're having some kind of aversion reaction to it, because there's two parts to ourselves, and I see this more and more in sessions with clients. So often there's a conflict that's going on, and that might be what's happening to you listening to some of this. And I think that conflict is that difference between, it's like your gut, let's call it your gut and your head. And your gut feels one thing, and your head tries to rationalise it and may pull you in another direction. Then you end up in this like, I don't know which way to go, and you try to rationalise your way out of it, and you can't. And that is kind of what I was alluding to at the beginning, saying stick with this, because there might be something deep down inside of you that kind of feels that these guys might be talking about something that would be helpful to you, but then your head comes in and goes, but I've got that completion to push through, that refurb. Once that refurb's done, maybe I'll have some time to do all of it, and all these other reasons that you can't do it. And that conflict between the two, being able to become aware of that, if you can become aware of that, that's like the first part of it. Awareness, because then if you can start to become aware of that, then there's like a whole host of other stuff that you can become aware of. And now a lot of this, you definitely, we're 2.5 years, let's say, into like meditating consistently, and I feel like we get clearer and clearer insights. But even still this, we have sessions with, external people, and they point out stuff. I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, that is happening, but I couldn't see it, or I couldn't articulate it in that way. And so for me, it's like meditation is just making that space to just be able to see and spot, or be open to, if someone were to point out for you that you are self-sabotaging, that you could be open to it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, one of the main difference that we've seen, like bringing in all of these kind of thoughts and ideas, working with our mentees, our clients, just seeing the difference with those that we've been working for an extended period of time. If you suggest now that they are self-sabotaging in a way, 90% of them will go, oh, okay, maybe. It's not necessarily yes straight away, but it's just like an openness to consider it. Whereas I think those who haven't yet gone through this process, we immediately kind of want to protect ourselves and go, no, of course not. I'm not self-sabotaging. Like, I'm really capable. I'm getting through my to-do list. I'm going out and doing all the stuff like that. I'm not doing it. And so therefore you just shut it down. And I think that opening that awareness process is part of realising that.
Absolutely. I think one of the things I think meditation is it's becoming aware of the feedback mechanism of your body. So our bodies are just an automated feedback mechanism, and on a base level that's a sensing mechanism. That's why when we touch a hot fire, we feel burning, we feel pain. It's because your body is feeding back to you that is bad for you in some way. We all understand that, but what we don't seem to understand as a society is that the emotions we're feeling are also a feedback mechanism. We get it on a base level. We say we feel some sort of internal pain, and our immediate reaction is to feel, whatever, guilt or anger. That's an internal feedback to say that this thing that's happening is something you've got to do something about, right? So
But the difference is, it's like we at first think, oh, I feel rubbish about that because that deal didn't work out, so I shouldn't do that kind of deal anymore. Like, we think that the deal, or for example, is the problem, whereas actually, when you get further into it, you realise, no, it's not that was the problem. It's my reaction to that is the problem.
Yeah, so we are all misinterpreting our internal feedback. And the reason is because we are all so in with that voice in our head, right? We are so controlled by the body, by what's going on inside, the emotions, what your head's going round and round and thinking, telling you, you get annoyed at someone, you start thinking about why you're annoyed, you start carrying on down that route, like all these things, you start thinking about what you're going to say to them, maybe I should get annoyed at them about this. Guess you're literally just going down in a spiral of thought. And none of which is the point of the feedback mechanism, right? And in theory, the meditation gets you out of those thoughts, out of that spiral, and then when you can get into it, this is the whole point of the candle. Stop thinking. It's not that you're supposed to not think anything. That's not the point. Step number 1 is to become aware that there are thoughts and they aren't you. And there are feelings and that they aren't you. So that you can look at them. That's where we talk about going to a mentor.
And there are events in your life
and
that are not you.
Yeah. And that's why going to a mentor or a third party is or a psychotherapist or whatever gives you the opportunity for someone else to become that awareness, to point it out for you, to help you to work it through. But where meditation comes in is you get to be that person yourself. If you can get to that point of looking at yourself with that awareness, you suddenly go, I can see with clarity. I get a different perspective on my own issues, and the insights come because you suddenly get this different outlook on what's going on, and your brain is able to then is open to come up with new ideas for how to solve that problem or to what you could do about it. And actually, that's another going scientific on this. Classic Dave. From a scientific level, we've got obviously 5 key different brainwave states. We've got beta, alpha, theta, delta are the main ones that we live our lives in. Beta is our standard conscious brainwave state. That's the kind of high frequency of brainwave for when we're conscious. And alpha is when we're daydreaming, theta is when we're dreaming, and delta is deep sleep. So this is how we live our lives. It's always in these different fluctuations. Now, the simple fact is that when we are stressed and in some sort of high emotion situation, we are in a very high brainwave frequency of beta. It's like a very high level of that. And the problem with that level of brainwave is that it is at the point of high brainwave beta, you can't see the bigger picture, because the body's natural reaction to that is, how can I survive? It's a survival mechanism. And when you need to survive, the body focuses in. It gets right focused because it's tunnel vision. Its whole design is to be able to see the predator. It's that we've been designed to deal with those tigers and lions, and you're supposed
or down valuations.
So all your brain does is focuses down on the problem, and we all know, and it's just common knowledge, especially in the business entrepreneurial sense.
It's really unhelpful.
You don't focus on the problem, focus on the solution. Look outside the box. These are the common phrases, right? And they're true. Like, in order to see a great solution, you have to stop looking at the problem and only the problem. You need to focus on answers. And the best brainwave state for that is not high beta, because that's the survival state. The best brainwave state for solutions is alpha, to get even further beyond your conscious state, to get into your daydreaming state, because that's the moment at which the brain is free and imaginative and coming up with its own nice ideas.
And as an aside, that's also why you should go on a lot of holidays, because
yes,
this is like beta is like our kind of working state, and actually to get away from the normal stuff that you're doing, to sit on a sun lounger as an example and just drift away and just daydream, like, you will find the solution there that you couldn't find sitting in front of your computer.
Can you bring this now back to, why is it that meditation made us 5-6 grand better off.
Yeah, okay, fine.
This is it.
So for me, the process of becoming more self-aware, which is what meditation did for me each morning. Generally I would meditate in the morning, and it would start out at 10 minutes and it kind of extended, and that time each day I would always do that before looking at emails, anything else in the business. So I'd come up from having a nice morning, go into a meditation and just clear the mind, maybe ask questions and just reflect on how things were really, and become more self-aware of how I was feeling. And that for me just started to bring more of a, over time, gradual clarity and awareness of myself and how I was feeling, and how I was feeling being nothing related to what the world was doing to me. Like, to me, it just disconnected those two things. And so whereas before I would have started to go, I am not feeling good, and I would then go, someone must have done something.
Blame is
who is to blame for this?
Who is to blame?
Classic human reaction. Why did we get that down valuation? Well, someone didn't do the valuation pack good enough, or we didn't do that, or blah 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 blah. Someone is to blame, and I would immediately push it out of myself into the world. And I stopped doing that and started going, actually, okay, like just letting that feeling be. And I think this was a big shift for me, was realising that those horrible feelings that we have are nothing to do with the outside world. And actually, if I can just sit with that feeling of, let's say, being angry, I'm angry at something, and just questioning and being aware of that feeling of anger in my body, not trying to push it away, but just let it be, and kind of just see what insights came out of allowing that emotion to be there. And for me, it brought about this gradual realisation for me in terms of how one of the big ways that I'd been self-sabotaging, which was definitely in the relationships, some of the relationships in my life, and it's been a consistent theme for me. And I think there is some consistency. You do it similar, but I'm definitely worse. And the problem was taking too much responsibility for other people. And it's something that I've always done throughout my entire life. It comes from somewhere, doesn't really matter where it comes from, but the fact is, it just is. And so the kind of story that I'd been telling myself subconsciously, that I'd been unaware of, was I am responsible for the people around me. If they're not happy, I don't deserve to be happy. So therefore, I have to look after them, do everything I can for them to make sure that they're happy, so that I'm allowed to be happy. And if they're happy, then, and you know, this again is all subconscious. It's only by unraveling it that I've realised it. The deep part at the bottom of it all is, if I don't do all of that, I won't be loved. People won't like me, I won't be loved, and therefore you get down to the deep survival thing, which is I will be alone in the desert, dying, because no one loves me. I'll be like, what's the word? Ostracised.
Cast out.
Now, obviously, I was not consciously aware of all of that playing out in my mind. Like, that wasn't the conscious story I was saying, it was the subconscious story. And so, as I became aware of that, and always you're trying to grow your business, increase your income, continue to grow. And I kind of realised that actually, for me, that taking responsibility for others was actually meaning that I was putting other people's needs ahead of my own needs, just because of all that subconscious confusion. And actually, as an aside to this, like the story I told myself was that it was good to take responsibility for others, to help people, like you're being a good person. But actually,
I'm going to just cut in here and say, clarity is that there is a big difference between supporting others, and helping others, and taking responsibility. And that is the line you have crossed.
Yes.
That's where you needed to. It went from just being a good person, a supporting person, a loving person, to self-sabotaging because you were taking too much responsibility and putting your whole sense of state of being and whole sense of self-worth on this basis. So, sorry, carry on.
No, that's great, thank you. And I think, therefore I was, you end up disempowering people. Like, everyone's on their own journey, right? Like, we don't know what path someone else that, we are in contact with is meant to go through. They're on their path, we're on our path. Let's be kind and loving and supportive to each other, but be just aware of what that actually means. And so for me, I was therefore taking on the financial responsibility of others around me because I felt like that's what I should do. And it was through that process of meditation that I just became aware of all of this. And yeah, that then leads to making different decisions from a much bigger place of clarity.
Yeah.
And that's how, for me, I don't know if I've explained that well enough, you can maybe tell me from an external perspective, like it then comes down to, okay, so what decisions am I making in the business? This is what I haven't covered. What decisions am I making in the business that are
Coming from that place.
And the business, it's both of us obviously, but from the point of this, it's me. The problems in the business are me. And we don't want to hear that, but I was ready to accept that. And so then by, transforming my perspective and realising that maybe what I thought was good wasn't good, for many ways, for me and for others, that then leads to a whole host of different business decisions, which then, the thing that I was trying to do more of in terms of to make the business grow, to create more cash flow, I was sabotaging that from happening from my emotional point of view. Have I explained that?
Yeah, no, I think what it came back to was business decisions. You were making the wrong ones.
Yeah.
We were both making the wrong ones. I was swayed by it as well. I was definitely party to this. I'm not
You're not
blameless. It's part of my self-sabotage as well, because I have the same inclination. And I would say we chose our business track, our business path. Every business decision was being based upon this foundation of too much responsibility for others, and it meant we were getting ourselves into a bit of a quagmire. And actually, instead of growing and increasing cash flow, we were either stable or decreasing it. And it was only through self-introspection and suddenly shifting your perspective that we managed to realise which decisions were happening because of that, and therefore we shifted the entire business direction. And it only took, instead of having to grow to make the money, we literally it was all there. That was the weirdest thing.
That is the weird thing, right? Like this whole sorry, keep that
just
thought.
Steal it from me. It's fine. Come on.
Like, we all want to be more abundant, right? And we think we have to go and do stuff to be more abundant, but actually that's not necessarily true. Probably isn't in most cases. Actually, it's potentially by doing less that actually it's all there, but we just don't want to believe that it's all there because that's part of our narrative.
Yeah.
You go.
Yeah, so you did less. I mean, you did more in the short term, right?
Yeah.
But it was more about what the business was doing and what the business needed. And it was shocking that actually the additional money that we were looking for was there in the business. And it was waiting for us to make the right decision to have it. And God, I can't believe it. What we went from was struggling really hard to try and make more money to suddenly just taking the easy road and having more money. And it was right there in front of us, but it took meditation to see it.
Yes. And then you realise how easy so much more of it actually is than you thought. And actually you go from struggling to thriving, and it wasn't the situation that was the problem, it was you. Now, I'm aware of time, but I kind of feel like we're on a really good track, and I do want to hear your version of this.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, carry on.
Go on, let's hear your version of self-sabotage. How did meditation help you? And let's bring it back to the business again as well at the end of it, in order to keep growing the business and make the business better.
So for me, going back to Jackie's very first story of the parasite and our very first introduction to meditation. Actually, I think I was drawn to that Total Meditation book because I was already on the downward spiral into a form of stress-induced depression.
And your body knew that, but your brain didn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My body was already feeling it. So I think that was around January I picked up that book and started meditation, but it was too late. It was too late because I was already too close to the brink. And by March time, I hit rock bottom.
No, it was May that it was rock bottom.
Oh, was it?
But you were bouncing along the bottom.
I was bouncing along the bottom in March. By May, I hit rock bottom.
Yeah,
you're right. And for me, that was it was a full burnout, massive burnout.
In a different way to before.
I'd never had a burnout like it. It was awful, and it was so weird because we were in South Africa, living the dream, having an amazing time, these incredible houses. Business was actually going pretty well, wasn't it?
It really was.
Not many challenges, and I hit this huge burnout. And I think it was this discrepancy, this disconnect between it. The business is going well, so what's this emotional depression all about? It didn't make sense to me. So that sparked an entire journey for me. I literally couldn't, when I was at rock bottom, I couldn't mail a document through DHL, could I? I
You
literally
tried to
fell
press
apart.
print on something and you just started crying.
I was basically crying from just trying to print a document and sign it to it was a mortgage document that I needed to send it back. It was too much for me. It was overwhelming. I went on a journey of just trying to work out, what is this? Because this clearly wasn't the business, but it was connected to the business. And I found out all about our chemicals in our body and the fact that stress has such an impact on those chemicals. And I learned about the fact that we have, a resilience level and our adrenal function is always throwing out hormones whenever we're stressed, and our bodies can only take so much of that because it just slowly gets oversaturated, and it gets more and more stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol are pumped into the body over a long period of time, and it can be a very, very low-lying underlying stress. And that was the part that I didn't understand, because I didn't feel like I was stressed, but it was more about my general attitude to life and to the business was one that induced a small amount of stress in me. And it was trying to control things, and that meant that my body eventually burnt out because the adrenal function just gave up. I got to a thing called adrenal burnout, pretty much adrenal fatigue, and that had a knock-on effect on my stomach acid levels, which had another chemical impact, all of which together meant that I wasn't getting the nutrients out of my food properly, and the chemicals in my body were telling me, you're overwhelmed, you're depressed, you can't cope, you need to do something differently. And for me, I suddenly started to see that my day-to-day attitude to life, I was, good at the job, right? Really
Excellent
good.
at the job.
I wasn't overwhelmed normally. I wasn't stressed normally. I was like,
if you look at it logically, there was not too much. There was the perfect amount of work in the perfect location with brilliant people. Like, logically, there was nothing wrong.
And yet I'd hit this point. So there was a problem in my approach to life because I didn't want this happening again. And what it does is when you hit burnout, it stops you wanting to work. It stops you wanting to grow your business. It changes you. You suddenly say, I had plans to buy 10 properties this year. I only want to buy one. I don't even want to do any. It literally stymies your growth entirely. And I changed. I was like, no, that's it. I'm done. I don't want to buy any more properties. I'm just done. Fed up with this. I want a different tack in life. And that was nothing to do with the business. Only to do with me. So that their meditation came in, and I was talking earlier about brainwave function, and in theory one of the key things is we talk about being stuck in high beta mode is the stress mode, and that's where you're trying to control things, trying to survive, trying to come up with solutions, but it's really very focused, and meditation brings you down. If you do it well and you do it right, it literally changes your brainwave from high beta to alpha. And what you do is you refresh your body. You give yourself a chance to recoup, to rejuvenate. If you're always getting those stress hormones, always in that stressed state of even a small one, your body can't heal, basically. And I was able to start focusing on, not just during the meditation, my meditation got me, it reset my levels, got me to a calm state. That meant the stress reduced, and I was able to, in fact, remove stress during the meditation. And then coming out of that, I would bring that forwards into my day. And then during the day, I would have a tool, a technique available to me so that every time I started to feel that, and the self-awareness is super powerful here because I wasn't aware before this. I wasn't aware of what was going on inside, but the meditation makes you aware. You suddenly start to feel things in your body in a very different way. You're like, oh gosh, that was happening. I didn't even know it was happening. I
just thought it was you, right?
Yeah, I just thought it was me. That's just who I am.
And I think you for me, there was the big thing. One of the big things for you was you connected worrying with being conscientious and doing a good job.
Yes.
So therefore, if you didn't have the feeling of worry, you were being somehow sloppy, careless,
and not doing a good job.
And it's just total rubbish.
Total rubbish.
But you.
Same person, same brain.
Had the same thing. And I think a lot of people listening to this will have the same thing. You think that you have to worry, or you're not going to build a business. You're going to miss something. You'll forget something. Forgetting something was a big thing for you.
Yeah.
You thought the worrying helped you to not forget.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I think that whole stress element for me was that was my big change. So for me, it's been over the last 2.5 years. It's been a journey of how can I bring fun, enjoyment into every aspect of my life. And that was specifically to avoid the stress and burnout as a starting point. So I was trying to get away from the negative, and that required not just resetting the system, but a lot of awareness of all these limiting beliefs, all of these things like you just pointed out, the worry thing. Just where was I self-sabotaging and inducing this stress in myself, brings me up to baseline, and then from there the magic happens, because you can then take yourself, you're able to cope, you're able to manage business well, you're back on a level. But what more can you do with that? I started to realize, wow, there's literally so much power in this tool to pull yourself up, to get to optimum performance at all times, rather than being stuck in like neutral and just kind of coping. I don't want to cope anymore.
Oh, you want to fly?
I want to fly. So, and one of the massive learnings for me through it all has been that when you start to become super aware of everything, you start to say, question everything. You start to question why am I feeling that? Why am I wanting that? Why am I desiring that? Why am I aiming for that? It's always why, right? And part of the awareness is to try and work that out and see what the body feels, and understand how your body's responding to all of your doing, what you're doing. And I came to this massive realization that everything I was doing was to try and basically be happy and have a nice time. I was trying to get to that end result, and yet everything I was doing was, because of how I viewed it, was causing the opposite effect. And it was like,
this is ridiculous.
Yeah. So I've worked very hard to, therefore, I say work very hard, that's a very old way of saying it.
That's the old Dave.
I say I've worked very hard. I've put in time,
You've consistently
put in time to meditation, in order to bring myself to a place where it doesn't matter what's happening in life, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, I can find a way to enjoy it, and I can find a way to have fun. And the knock-on effect of that has been huge, because it just makes your business goes better, your life goes better, people respond to you better, you literally get better results, and you achieve more because you've got more energy, you've got more motivation, because you're having a more fun time. You achieve more, which means you get to your goals quicker, and while you're at it, you're enjoying the journey, which is what we all want.
It's the point of the end result anyway.
And all of that, quicker business results, more money sooner, and a happier journey, which is what we wanted in the end, but we're getting it sooner, all came back to meditation. One tool solved it all for me. So that's my story.
I feel like that's like the bombshell to end it on, really.
Final thought?
My final thought is... You got one?
My final thought would be that the thing about meditation is that there's a huge amount you can read about it. There's a massive amount of ways of going about it. It's almost a never-ending, infinite amount of different ways you can meditate. So don't get stuck in all of that. I would just suggest take one step at a time, and just start sitting down for 5 to 10 minutes on your own, in quiet. And I put AirPods in.
I couldn't
put
do
music
without
in.
music, yeah.
Because the whole point of meditation is you want to kind of get away from the world. So by putting some music in and shutting out the world, it helps you.
Just put like meditation music into Spotify as a starting point, right? Like you'll find some good stuff.
And just get that chance to allow yourself to calm down, listen to something, and just get away. Start to become aware. Start to become aware of the thoughts and how much they. And I think this is one of the main things. It's not about trying not to think. It's about noticing when your thoughts are controlling, and just then letting them go and say, no, actually that thought line, whatever I'm starting to spiral down in, I'm not going to let it go. And that creates a certain mental discipline, and then that helps you to calm down. And then from that place, go and read stuff. There's so many different meditation techniques which are so powerful, and just go try them out.
My last thing I'd say is just take a notepad when you're doing a meditation. Just like thoughts that come up, you will be like, oh, I've forgotten to do that. Oh, should do that. Oh, has that happened? And just don't read into them, just notice them and write them down, because I think it will distract you. Oh, dragonfly. It will distract you if you try and remember them whilst meditating.
Yes.
You just won't be able to do it.
You're right. So it's letting them go by writing them down, because you'll feel they're too important otherwise.
I feel like there's loads more to cover on this in terms of different, maybe at some point in the future we can go into some of the meditation.
Oh, we'll go into the meditation. We'll do a meditation part 2. We'll talk about some of the ones that have been most powerful to us, the different techniques we've used, which is what we do. We do with our clients. We actually run a weekly meditation for our clients where we just do a different meditation each time, giving them ideas. Just a 10-minute one.
It's funny, there's so many barriers in the way of getting into meditation. So if you don't do something off the back of this, just at least notice it, and if it keeps presenting itself, maybe it's time to start taking notice. Thank you so much for joining us on this latest episode. If you're enjoying the show, we'd really appreciate it if you would just give us a little rating on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And if there's a friend that you think might benefit from tuning into some of these conversations too, please do spread the word about the podcast, Property Lifestyle Mastery. So next week, you're going to be joined by myself and Dave again, where we're taking a nice bridge from this episode into the 80-20 principle. So how to use the 80-20 principle of the fact that 80% of what you do comes from 20% of your actions and vice versa. What does that really mean in reality, and how can you use that to guide what you're doing on a daily, weekly and beyond basis within your business? Going to be an amazing conversation. So we look forward to seeing you, hearing you, tuning in with you wherever you are in the world, as Dave and I share with you how to maximise results in your business with the trusty help of the 80-20 principle. Until next week, have a great week ahead.